Alrighty, we are back. Another episode of Post-Fades Cheesesteaks. I believe this is episode 54.
Love it. Love it.
Usual suspects tonight, myself, Dakota, and Tim. We had a very exciting, I would say, NFL draft this past weekend. So the draft took place Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I watched most of it. I missed a lot of, I would say, the second half of Saturday just because of work. But I watched all of rounds 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then some of
fair,
5.
As an Eagles fan, like after the first round, I was after the first round pick and the move that I made with the Cowboys, which no one saw coming. They could have drafted like 10 people that never played football before, and I think I still would have given this draft at least a B. Like the first round really gave you everything you wanted and you needed. I was very happy with what they did. They got aggressive too. You had the most picks in the draft, and they went out and got the guy they wanted, and that board was not shaping out well for them because you did not see Smith coming down to them after the Giants, and after that, then who do you pick?
Yeah. So before we get into it, we'll just say this will be all draft focused episode. So we'll go run down all the Eagles picks, touch on the undrafted players they signed, and then we'll go into like kind of looking back at the first round for other teams, see how we think if they took the right guy, too high, too low, and then any steals throughout the entire draft. So, but starting with the Birds, I would just, before we get into the picks, just right off the bat, I will say my immediate reaction was that it was a very solid draft. And like in my head when it ended, I thought, a B plus. I think they did a fair job.
Yeah.
And then looking through all their picks and kind of learning about some of the players today, I still agree. I think it's a B plus. I would have liked a little more emphasis on linebacker and cornerback earlier in the draft, but I think they got good value players later, especially like 6th, 7th round. I think they got some steals.
Yeah.
And I've heard good things about their players. And one thing people were kind of saying is that this draft, you notice like a trend. They targeted players with winning backgrounds. A lot of them were team leaders. A lot of them like want to get down and dirty and work hard, which I think fits exactly with how Sirianni coaches.
Yeah.
They seemed happy in the draft room when they were taking players, and I think it panned out pretty well for them. But like you said, to start off with Devontae Smith, I mean, I was talking with Nick. Him and I were kind of like FaceTime watching it, and we saw Surtain go, J.C. Horn go, Jalen Waddle go, Jamar Chase go, Penny Sewell go, Kyle Pitts go. We're like, all right. So this is not working out anyhow like we thought it would.
No.
So basically the Eagles had like Devontae Smith, and that was it of like our top picks for them.
So hold on, not to cut you off, because I want to know, because I was in a bad spot at this point. Patrick Surtain just gets picked by the Broncos.
Mm-hmm.
The Cowboys are now on the clock. You see the board shaped out not the way you wanted. You still have 2 quarterbacks on the board, and you were hoping that would be gone by now to help your draft pick. Devontae Smith was the only guy I really wanted at that point. Obviously, the slider, I think the guy that was projected to go that slid the most outside the quarterbacks was Rashawn Slater.
Mm-hmm.
But still, like,
with that
would have been fine, but I wouldn't be nearly as excited. That would have been the moment where I was like, you know what, maybe we should have stayed at 6, because maybe that's the difference between Rashawn Slater, who's fine, he's great, but you needed someone like the cornerback or the wide receiver to really help you. And I thought they were the better overall players, and it fit your need more. So when Surtain goes off the board, what does Dakota think? Did you go into full panic mode? Because I know I did. I knew that the Cowboys were going to take someone on defense, and I thought the Giants were line up. When we did the draft, I think it was our mock draft, I said, I had Gettleman mocked a wide receiver, and I was like, you know what? That's Gettleman's baby, is Daniel Jones. Even though they brought in Galladay, they're going to do whatever it takes to invest in him, because if he doesn't succeed, it doesn't really matter what else happens outside of him.
Yeah.
Gettleman's going to lose his job. Gettleman is tied to Daniel Jones, and he knew he was going to do everything to let him succeed. Taking Devontae Smith after you brought in Galladay was a move I definitely think the Giants were looking at. So what put me in your mindset?
So 3 things.
Okay, go
First,
ahead.
first
Three.
of
Hey,
all,
look at you. A lot of thoughts going through your head.
one of them is really not that important. But first of all, we want to say shout out Golden Road Mango Cart. It's a great beer. Sponsor us, please.
Hey, before he even gives me his opinion on the draft pick, he's already putting out the sponsors and the companies. I'm proud of you. Look at you.
It was a perfect day for it. It was a little warm out, Great time to open a big one.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Now, no one
All right, now
listens
to
to us
the
for a beer and
right,
weather. So let's
right.
get to what we're
We could
going
we
to.
could do a beer episode. That'd be fun. No,
Yeah.
but yeah. So like I said, I was talking to Nick. And we were watching it live, and then we got to 9, and I was like, oh, well, Denver, like Justin Fields is right there for them. Like if they want him, they can have him, or Rashawn Slater. And then they're like Patrick Surtain. I was like, what? Okay, whatever. Defense, you guys already have corners, but go ahead. And then we got to Dallas 10, and I was like, all right, who the hell are they going to take now? Maybe they'll trade back. And I was like, the Giants are like, and you guys said I was a fool when we did our 4-person mock that I had the Giants taking Devontae Smith because I told you they wanted a receiver.
I believe in the receiver. I said it when we did our mock draft. I saw Daniel Gettleman or David Gettleman do whatever it takes for Daniel Jones.
Well, Bobby and Nick said I was a fool, but regardless,
listen, you're called fool most of the time anyway. Yeah. So I don't, the subject doesn't really matter as much.
So that was point 1. So that's point 2 because point 1 was the beer. But for point 2, yes. So I'm in my head, I'm like, all right, at 12, like unless Slater's there, like they got to trade back at least a couple picks and just maybe grab an edge rusher, or maybe like Elijah Moore if they trade back a little more. And then they traded up. So this is part 3. Then they traded up to 10.
Mm-hmm.
And I started panicking because I was like, okay, my heart.
Panicking. You started panicking when they trade? Oh, man, I started partying. As soon as I saw them trade with the Cowboys, you knew why they were up there.
No. I panicked because
I don't know
my heart is like, oh, Devontae Smith is there. They trade up to get Devontae Smith. My brain said, this is the Philadelphia Eagles. And they are not sold on Jalen Hurts yet, clearly. And because they still haven't named him their starter. They got, I don't know what that deal is, but and so I said Justin Fields is still there, and they just moved up. Panic set in. Panic. I was probably like 80% sure they were gonna draft Justin Fields, and I was like, I didn't want to watch when Goodell walked out. I literally like kept like looking and then looking down and looking up and then looking down because I didn't want to see it.
Yeah.
And then he said Devontae Smith, and I was like, fuck it, let's go. I was so excited.
Yeah.
It's funny because when he won the Heisman, people were like back in January, people were like, this guy could go number 1 overall or number 2 after Lawrence. Like even if the Eagles stayed pat at 6, it wouldn't be a bad pick.
He was number 3. He was the 3rd prospect, I believe, on Mel Kiper's book, or 5th prospect. I'm sorry, 5th prospect on Mel Kiper's board.
Yeah. So, and I think it was Mina Kimes on ESPN. She was like, this was one of the best value picks in the first round because the Eagles traded back and got a first round next year to go to 12. Then they moved up, giving up. They basically just cost them a 3 to move up and get Devontae Smith. So you got Devontae Smith and a first round next year for a 3rd round pick, basically.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, my train of thought, I started seeing the board dwindle. The Jamar Chase pick made me worried because I think everyone had Sewell going on the mock, and since Sewell didn't go, I didn't expect the Panthers and Lions to go back-to-back offensive tackles. So, I could have seen one of them going Slater if Sewell was going at 5, but it just didn't work out for that way. Then Waddle goes to the Dolphins. Then J.C. Horn goes at 8, which no one really saw going. And then the big surprise was Surtain with the Denver. And I was shocked a lot because Fields was right there. And I just was surprised that they turned down the quarterback.
So
my first thought was, what are the Cowboys going to do? Because, the Eagles got screwed out of this whole thing, but Devontae Smith was still there. The Cowboys, I think they were only banking on one of the corners being there and didn't really have much of a game plan outside of that. Yeah. So I kind of thought, you know what? Fields is there. Mac Jones is there. I have to think someone's trying to make a move up soon. We're getting to that, the Washington, the Chicago, the Patriots. Neither of them I thought were going to actually go up to 4 or 7. I thought it was going to cost you way too much, but Once you got out of that top 10, I could have seen them moving up. So then the Cowboys make the move, which I kind of thought was going to happen. I didn't see them wanting to stay there if they didn't have to. And with Fields there, I didn't think they were going to have to. So they made the trade announcement. And I was like, oh, who is this? This has got to be someone for a quarterback. Can't possibly be the Eagles. Why would Jerry Jones come out of his coffin to make a trade with the Philadelphia Eagles? And then I saw the green logo pop up on the bottom and knew exactly why they were trading up there. And I was so jubilant. I hear your pain, and I know the Fields chatter were there, and I was worried. Because you know what I saw? I thought the Cowboys might take Slater, and Devontae Smith goes to the Giants, and then I really don't know what the Eagles
That's true. Yeah, I thought Slater, if the Cowboys stayed pat, was a lock there because of,
or even Slater the Giants, but I didn't see the Cowboys taking Smith, and that would be my nightmare. Yeah. And then that
would be the dumbest. Like, I just wouldn't understand that at all. But
you know what? You never know what to deal with, and when they moved up, I kind of knew that was Devontae Smith, and I started the party, and I started feeling good. Obviously, I learned from when they announced the Jalen Hurts pick last year to, you never know what's going to come out of the commissioner's mouth. You just really never know. Picks surprise you all the time. They make the pick. They get Devontae Smith, a guy who, honestly, I would have taken at 6, especially the way the board worked out. If we were at 6 and Pitts and Trace were off the board, I would have taken Devontae Smith. I like Devontae Smith a little bit more than Waddle. I liked him better than the corners. I was torn between Smith and Sartine, but ultimately Smith was my top of those corners and 2 Alabama wide receiver prospects that I really wanted the Eagles to get. So no complaints. You got the first, you gave up a third. Who cares? You had 2 thirds, you give it up. You even kept the better of the 2-3 to move up. Go get your guy. I was happy they were aggressive. It was, remember last year when you were begging for them to move up, you knew CeeDee Lamb was going to fall, but he wasn't going to make it all the way to where they needed to be.
Yeah.
This year, they learned from the mistake. They went and got the guy, and I'm ecstatic. And honestly, that Devontae Smith pick made it so I was not going to give this team any worse than like a B to a B- on the draft. It didn't really matter what else happened. You got the guy you needed. Yeah. You've wasted so much resources in wide receivers, and you finally got a guy who can be an actual number one. Pumped. I was ecstatic. One of my favorite Eagles draft picks in the recent memory.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know the defense needs a little bit of work, but I mean, I don't want to get too excited and really overblow their potential here, but looking at the draft, like in total, what some of the pieces they added on offense, and if that line can stay like 75% healthy, I'm not going to lie. If Jalen Hurts plays well, this offense could actually be pretty dangerous.
So I'll say, I mean, you mentioned that they have announced Jalen Hurts as a starter, but listen, they went and got a number 1 wide receiver who was a former teammate of his.
Right.
And then they went, and I think the most controversial pick they made was the 2nd round pick when they took Landon Dickerson, which I like the pick. I understand the injury history. I understand the Sidney Jones worries. I understand that your offensive line has been, just as a unit, riddled with injuries the last 2 years. And I understand that, but dude, we're talking about a first round talent. He's a stud. He's a 6'6" center. He's been on a winning team, like you were saying. And honestly, to piggyback off what you said is like, they need guys that like are leaders that can lead this team, that know how to win. Like all the Eagles' success, you can contribute to the leadership of Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelsey, Malcolm Jenkins, Brandon Graham, Lane Johnson. They set the bar so high. They came in, they were leaders to this team. They were vocal leaders that brought out the best of them. And then look what you did. You brought in Devontae Smith, a guy that works his ass off. He's undersized. He's never going to be outworked. And then you brought in Landon Dickerson, who you've only heard is an incredible leader. Yeah. I watched that game where he tore his ACL. The whole entire sideline from Alabama came off the field to, pat him on the back, high five him as he got carted off. The guy seems like a leader. He reminds me of Kelsey. He's got personality. He's a leader. He can come in, I think, anchor that line. I think he could be your starting center. If Brooks is healthy, I think he beats out Malo, and you have a nice little line there. But I understand the complaints of injury, but what do you think? I love the pick. I understand that there was other players that people wanted there, but when you talk about best available talent, take away the injuries and everything, I think he was the best overall talent there.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I was hearing people said, if not for his injury, like this past season, like he would have went top 15 because of how talented and how versatile he is.
Of course,
he would have went ahead of Elijah Vera Tucker, who's arguably the best inside lineman of this draft. He went like 14th, I think, to the Jets. They trade up to get him. which is a good pick. He's a hell of a
Yeah.
player too. But I was based on who was still on the board. I would have rather had like a sexier name like Sante Samuel Jr. or JOK. But I think people were just mad because it was a lineman who had injury problems. But like you said, like the dude was a first round talent,
He's a first round
and
talent without a doubt.
and his injury is not the same as like a Sidney Jones because Sidney Jones is a corner, and corners are running all over the field. They're doing so much more, torquing and twisting with their legs that while centers need to have strong knees and strong legs, it's not the same motions that they go through. So
Yeah.
I am I concerned? Sure, but I think it was well worth the risk
I think
because what only like 50% of first round players and second round players actually work out and the rest are
yeah.
busts. So it's
Yeah,
like
you're not wrong. In the second round, you want to take, especially early in the second round, you want to take first round talent. You want to take guys that fell. Because listen, we could talk about the Saints, the Raiders, teams that draft guys that no one had in the first round.
let's
That
not
always
talk about the
pushes,
Raiders.
yeah, they always push first round talent out of the first round. If you're a good, drafting that high in the second round, you should be able to get first round talent. I think that's what the Eagles did. I mean, the injury concern, I'm worried because it's multiple injuries. It's the ankle injury and it's his second ACL tear coming out of college. And I understand the complaints of that and I get it. But listen, you led the league in sacks last year. We gave up 65 sacks. The second worst team gave up 50. And you're talking about like the Texans and Washington, I think. Like these are bad teams. And you outpaced them, not even close with sacks. They had to address the offensive line. They're getting older. They're injury riddled, so you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what Brooks is going to do. You already heard the rumors this year about Kelsey retiring. I like it. You couldn't find, there was no better offensive lineman on the board, in my opinion. And I think the guy was a good value pick there. I know the section names, which you mentioned, but this guy could be a stud.
Yeah, I think he could definitely push for starting time at guard this year, and then I think this is the last year of Kelsey's contract, and I would assume he's going to retire after this year.
Yeah, I mean,
so then he could move right into center if he's
that's
staying healthy and plays well.
And that's how I think the whole mindset was. Listen, they did the same thing with Dillard. Peters was still there. They drafted him to replace him because it was great value. He slid in the first round. He was probably the best offensive tackle prospect in that draft. And they took him because they needed to, and they were going to eventually need to replace him. I look at it the same way. If you take away injuries, and Asante Samuel, JOK, and Lander Dickerson, who's going to be a Pro Bowler in 3 years, assuming everyone's healthy, I still think Dickerson's the better of the three prospects. It's the injury concern, which is tough.
Yeah, and I think fans need to understand that, none of us are experts. Like you and I are no draft experts. And if we're not experts...
Speak for yourself. Speak for yourself.
And if we're not experts, the basic Eagles fan who's crying about them not taking, Asante Samuel Jr. instead of Dickerson is also no expert. So don't get your panties in a bunch. These were good picks. One thing I did notice is that they didn't necessarily draft for need, but instead drafted talent. And like that's a lot of successful teams. That's how they draft because you can find like your team is not going to be 100% built through the draft. There's no team that's 100% homegrown. So you make moves in the offseason, you sign players, you trade for players, and then you draft. Sure, you would love for your draft prospects to pan out, but at the end of the day, your team is a collaboration of different pieces from different spots. So I think drafting for talent is fine, especially because this is like a retooling year, I would say. I think they'll play decent. I don't think they're going to be super competitive. Like I could see another 8-8, 7-9 season, but I think the year after, I think 2020 season, as long as they figure out the quarterback situation, if Jalen Hurts plays well this year, I think 2022 will be more of a contending year.
You'd hope. Well, you have 3 first-round picks, hopefully, in your pocket too.
And that's the thing I was seeing why we didn't see a lot of trades, like too many trades, because there was no combine. A lot of players sat out this college season, and I think that impacted a lot of things. So next year's draft's a lot more surefire. You'll have more information, more evaluations of players. So I think a lot of teams were trying to stockpile more picks for next year. Like the Vikings and Giants, I think got a bunch of picks for next year. So,
Yeah.
but one thing I did like that the Eagles were doing was they continue to build in the trenches. And growing up watching Andy Reid, like I think it's a genius philosophy. If you have a great O line and a great D line, you can supplant pieces around them. And um, I think the third round pick of Milton Williams, the D tackle from Louisiana Tech, was a good pick. He seems like a high motor guy.
Yeah. Physical freak.
Maybe a little small, not small, but like thinner because he's like 6'3", like 280.
Yeah.
Usually D tackles are like 300 plus pounds, but
Well, I think they want to move him around. They mentioned that already, put him on the edge.
yeah, I think it was a good pick though. And
from what I've heard, I mean, I can't say I knew a lot about Milton Williams going into the
no,
draft, but I do like it. The one thing, and you did mention it is important to build in the trenches. The one thing that opens my eyes though with Howie, and you could even say this about the wide receiver pick, is you look at the draft for their picks. Milton Williams, obviously, they took a D tackle and then 2 edge rushers later in the draft. What position have we invested in the most so far? You got Barnett, who's a first round pick who hasn't really developed. You had Hargrave and what's the other D tackle's name?
Ox,
No, they just released
Malik Jackson,
who you spent big free agency money. I feel like
he's on the Browns now, I think.
Yeah, I feel like I saw that and I was like, I understand how important his trenches, but it's the fact that you keep missing on the picks and the investments and free agents that you're going in circles. And maybe they could have focused more on linebacker or cornerback if they didn't have to adjust their or make up for their misses in wide receiver and D line and everything. So, I just hope these guys turn out because it does seem like we're in the same cycle. I feel like we're drafting corners or need wide receivers or need defensive linemen almost every year. It's almost like the same thing.
I mean, I would like to see some like stats on this or some research, but I would have to assume wide receiver and cornerback are the highest boom or bust players to be taken in drafts like that. There's countless times corners are taken in the first round and they just don't pan out.
Yeah.
So like I wasn't super. No, I mean they got a guy later. He might have been a fourth rounder. Let me.
McPherson.
Zach McPherson, Texas Tech.
Yeah.
I heard. So him and then the running back in the fifth round they took Gainwell. People were speaking pretty highly of him. I know on some analyst boards they were both top 100 and they both were drafted way outside the top 100. So
yeah,
I was happy with those. Zach is more of a slot guy from what I understand because his like speed isn't the best for a corner, but
yeah, which is fine. I mean, you're drafting a guy in the fourth round. If you get a slot guy in the fourth, I can live with that.
Yeah, but so they had obviously like we said, they traded up to get Devontae Smith at 10. Then they took Landon Dickerson 37th overall in the second. Then with the 73rd pick in the third round, they took D tackle Milton Williams. Number 123 overall was Zach McPherson, the cornerback of Texas Tech. 150 overall in the fifth was Kenneth Gainwell, running back Memphis, which reminds me a lot of Naheem Hines, the Colts running back. So I think he'll be a nice addition to the Miles Sanders, Jordan Howard, Boston Scott rotation there.
Yeah, I mean, they could use more depth there.
Sixth round was Marlon Tuipulatu. He's a D tackle from USC.
All over that. That was good. Yeah.
Another rotation guy. I was hearing good things about this guy too. So
yeah.
And then they had 4 6-round picks, and then they ended up keeping 3 of them. And then 191 overall was Taron Jackson, DN from Coastal Carolina. This was the pick I really liked. Jacoby Stevens, the LSU linebacker or safety. He's a kind of a hybrid. He was also taken in the 6th round. I mean, he led LSU in tackles last year. He was tied for 3rd in the FBS with 3 fumble recoveries. He's a speed guy. I don't know if he'll start, but I think he'll definitely be a rotation in the linebackers. I don't know what they plan to do. They did bring back Alex Singleton, so he might still be the starter. I don't know. And then the last pick was Patrick Johnson, the linebacker from Tulane, was pick number 234. From what I've seen, this is one of the top steals from the day 3 and the 7th round in particular from a lot of reporting sites. So that's what I'm saying. Overall, B plus grade for this draft.
Yeah,
I think
I
they definitely needed to address depth at offensive line and then get some players on defense to kind of like fire up, the rookies from last year and the younger guys who, make some competitions because I feel like we were just lacking talent. So we just played whoever was healthy.
of
Um,
course.
so I think this will be good. I mean, we actually need linebackers, unlike Dallas, who has like 12 linebackers now. Um, but yeah, I think overall, like I said, B plus. They addressed some needs. They got talent in good spots, and they didn't. It's not. We're not like the Raiders here, reaching for a tackle in the first
Yeah.
round when he's really like a third round, late second talent.
Well,
But
yeah, the Raiders do that regularly. I mean,
yeah,
honestly, this draft came down. You're not drafting sixth overall very often, and you could not mess that pick up. Whatever you did, that had to be a bona fide someone you were excited for stud. They obviously traded back, and they still got the guy that you probably wanted them to take at six. So
yeah.
I think that alone makes the draft a win. I'm pretty high on the Dickerson pick. I know some other people aren't. But obviously, with the Eagles, yeah, we can't just all talk about the good things. How can we talk again about how this front office continues to embarrass themselves on a national level? Like they look like they're just children arguing with each other in the draft room after they make a pick. Like the national TV, no one thought, oh, we have video cameras all over the place. Let's try to act like we're on the same page.
Were you talking about when Howie went to go fist bump the one older guy and
Oh
he was
my!
like fed up about
You
something?
just see it, and it's like I don't even need to read their lips to understand that Tom Donahue clearly didn't want to draft this guy. Howie probably ignored him and went and did it anyway, just like all the other reports you've heard from all the other drafts. It just makes you feel like this team's not learning from their mistakes.
I think that was the Milton Williams pick,
It was, yeah,
and
yeah.
and if I recall, they showed another video of it though, and like everyone else was fired up about it. Like Sirianni was hyped, the D coordinator was hyped, like he was cursing on the phone to the guy, like he was so excited. Like it was only that guy because apparently he wanted somebody else there, but I mean everybody else was excited about it.
But come on, someone from PR, someone has to like
Yeah, but you're
tell
not
them.
gonna you're not gonna make everyone happy with every single pick. Like you're not always gonna be in agreement, and like they can't worry about the cameras being there. Like it's
Oh, no.
you
When
got a
when I've
job
had
to
to
do.
listen, when I've had to listen to all the the infighting and the stories coming out, like
Who
what
cares?
what what organization is getting talked about more? It just makes you feel like the divide is still there.
Yeah, they were. I watched a little bit of the presser when the draft was done, and uh, I swear, like some of these reporters just ask questions to ask questions, and like they know like they're not going to get answers. Like it's just I don't understand what goes behind reporting, but
Someone's gotta ask them. It's literally their job to ask questions.
I know,
So
but they ask the dumbest questions. Like they ask questions they're not going to answer. Like why do you waste a question? But there was like 5 questions about Zach Ertz, and how he gave like the same answer for everyone. It was
yeah,
like,
honestly, I want to get your take on that. I almost forgot. I was surprised. I was surprised that he's still on the team. What's your thoughts? Is he still getting moved? If so, why did we wait till after the draft? Do we just want draft picks next year?
I would assume they tried to move him and they just weren't getting what they wanted, um, which was probably like a fourth or a late third, maybe, because that's how they were trying. That was the value like at the end of the season. Um,
Yeah, I just I
I
don't
mean,
see
at,
where they're going with
at
that.
this point, I mean, the way he worded it definitely sounds like they might be moving on from him regardless, but because he kept saying, "Oh well, Sachs means a lot to this organization. We have a lot of respect for him, and at this moment, he's still under contract by the Philadelphia Eagles, blah, blah, blah." But I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he was actually still on the roster come September, just based on how things are unfolding. And I wouldn't look if they're not, unless they get like a third, fourth, or fifth for him, like I'm okay keeping him and not getting anything in return than throwing him away for a sixth or seventh. But
Yeah,
I
I
don't know.
just I'm surprised they couldn't get like a third, fourth, or fifth. Maybe a third would be too much, but I'm
Yeah.
surprised no one gave you a mid round pick on and bringing Zach Ertz. He still can play.
Yeah. I mean, there
Um,
were a lot of tight ends drafted in like the middle rounds, it seemed like. So I don't know.
we'll see.
But
That goes on to what we were saying about the Eagles. Obviously, we covered them pretty good. What are some picks you liked in the first round, in particular?
Well, before we get to that, I do want to go over their undrafted free agents real quick.
Oh, draft picks and undrafted. Look at you
Oh
putting in
yeah,
extra
we
work.
got we
All
got
right.
all the work.
Go ahead.
So they drafted a wide receiver from Florida, or excuse me, signed a wide receiver from Florida, Trayvon Grimes. Don't know too much about him. The one that I was familiar with and that a lot of people were actually pretty hype on was Jamie Newman, the quarterback from Georgia.
Yeah.
Very similar Jalen Hurts style quarterback. Probably should have gotten drafted, honestly.
Yeah, I was surprised he didn't get drafted.
Yeah, I think he was probably, I think they said like late sixth, early seventh round pick. But I think it's a solid backup, especially if I mean we have what Joe Flacco now, so he'd be a good third quarterback.
And why not?
We got an offensive tackle from Buffalo, Coyote Owasika. I will say this draft, we've seen the most amount of players I don't know how to pronounce their names of. I don't know what was going on. And then we got another receiver. God damn it, I don't even know how to. Jahaman Asubon from Texas A&M.
Wow, without even looking at that, I know you bridged that one pretty bad.
A center from Indiana, Harry Kreider. Tight end.
That's a name you can do.
There we go.
I'm proud of you
Here's
there
an even better one. Tight end from Nebraska, Jack Stoll. Easy.
Ooh, nice.
And then a DN from Iowa State, Jaquan Bailey. So, yeah, I would say, I mean, the Jamie Newman thing, and then to bring in, you always see teams sign receivers undrafted just to add competition, see if they can find anything.
Well, yeah, always special teams guys too.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't know how many undrafted players make it on rosters as opposed to practice squad stuff. And I know when we had Brandon Cottom on that one episode, he kind of spoke about a lot of these players, they're speaking to tons of teams before the draft even starts. So that's why they get scooped up so fast, is because if they don't get drafted, there's teams that were still in contact with them that are like, all right, well, we didn't draft you, but we are going to sign you, and so on and so forth. But yeah, like we said, overall, a good draft from the Eagles. As far as the first round for other teams, a couple of head scratchers here and there, but I mean, overall, I feel like a lot of players went where they were supposed to. I was really cool to see the reunions going on. I mean, we had, Jamar Chase joining Joe Burrow. We had obviously Devontae rejoining Jalen Hurts. We had Travis Etienne returning with Trevor Lawrence, and then Tua and Jalen Waddle. So that was really cool to see, and I think it's smart on the team's behalf to, give your, especially a quarterback, giving them a player they're familiar with and thrived with in college. Like that's like Joe Burrow and Jamar will probably be, as long as they can actually get Joe Burrow some line play to help.
I was kind of surprised
keep him healthy.
Draft like 6 linemen afterwards. I will say off one of those, the reunion. Probably of all the reunion picks, I didn't like the most was the ETN pick.
Yeah, it was interesting.
It's just, listen, your team, the Jaguars had what, 1 win? And you're going to draft, they had a top 5 rusher last year. James Robinson was 5th in the league in rushing. And you're going to tell me that you're going to draft a first round pick on a running back? Like your team is just a disaster everywhere. The only position you could probably make an argument you're not that bad in is the position you draft a first rounder in. I don't know. I thought that was a little bit, a little questionable. I mean, I get what you're saying with, you reunite a guy, especially a guy who's, going to be the either the savior or set this team back another decade with Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Give him somebody he's familiar with. I understand that, but it's just, could you have drafted anyone in any position that would have been more impactful than, a guy that's going to split reps with James Robinson? So I did think it was a little question. I like Etienne a lot. I had him in the first round. We did the mock, but I don't know. That fit just didn't really make a lot of sense to me.
I think Etienne is a player that you have to know how to utilize because he's more of like a Z weapon. I feel like because you could put him out a receiver, you could have him run the ball, you could have him catch the ball out the backfield, down the field.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like the value as a late first round pick, but I think it's a good fit. I think obviously, I mean, Kyle Pitts, great choice by the Falcons there.
Yeah, actually,
Um,
I think there was a theme in the first round. Three of my favorite picks kind of were all in the same position. I think one of the positions we kind of already talked about was offense tackle still a lot. Sewell went to the Lions, which I thought was fine. Lions are again like the Jaguars, just draft anyone to help in any
mhm.
position. But I think I honestly might be the biggest steal in the draft was Rashawn Slater fell to 13. I had the Chargers taking
Yeah,
Darrisaw, who I
same.
also liked going to the Vikings at 23. The Vikings actually traded back, got some more picks, and still got
Vikings
the
had a pretty
guy.
solid draft.
Yeah, I mean, I think realistically the Vikings moved back and was going to take a guy they probably could have took him where they were at anyway, and you know. I don't think the Chargers could in a million years saw Rashawn Slater falling to them, and that was a great pick for them. They needed him, and that line was suddenly one of the worst in football last year. Now they brought in Slater, they brought in Corey Lindsey, and they signed, I believe it was Mac Filers as a
Hmm.
guard. It's legit now. Like they can actually protect Herbert. So I did like those picks.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I would like to point out, even though it wasn't in the correct slots, that I had predicted the Ravens to take both Rashad Bateman and the Penn State edge rusher away. So
yeah,
little
but
little pat on the back there.
horseshoes and hand grenades. That's it.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought the Ravens had a pretty solid draft as they
yeah,
do
I mean,
every year.
Najee Harris going to the Steelers. It's a
I
good
like that
pick as
one.
long as they start, getting some linemen to help play.
Yeah, but I think that's also a team that needed an impact runner. Like they were fine with James Conner, but I think it was very obvious James Conner was just he was playing for a couple of years playing behind a very good offensive line, and he was just doing enough.
Yeah,
It was very different between what Le'Veon Bell was doing with that same offensive line than what he was doing.
yeah. I think the line staying pat and taking Sewell at 7 was a phenomenal pick.
Oh yeah, just take the best available, and a guy that should have easily gone before 7.
I think the Bears trading up for Justin Fields was a smart move. It's a good
Agree.
pick.
I really like that.
The Jets trading up to get Elijah Vera Tucker was a good pick. Um, Quiddy
Jets,
Pay, Quiddy Pay to the Colts was a great pick. Caleb Farley to the Titans was a great pick. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't too many head scratch. I mean, the only ones that I really had an issue with was like, well, Alex Leatherwood, the tackle from Alabama,
the
going to
Raiders
the
just
Raiders
don't
at
know.
17.
They just don't. I get it. You like guys like I understand that you really like this guy. You need to get him, but like you don't have to draft him in the first round. Like, and I feel like they've done this 3 years in a row, and it blows my mind. Mike Mayock used to be a draft guy.
It has to be John Gruden calling all the shots here because I used to like solely swear by Mike Mayock's draft boards and stuff
Agreed.
because he was so good. Like I loved watching him on NFL Network during the draft because he was so smart, knew all these players I've never even heard of, and had like stats for all of them, and like always had like really good rankings. But every time the Raiders draft since he got there, I've been so confused.
It doesn't. They literally fall in love with a guy, and like oh, we could get him in the third round, but we just love him. We want to make sure we get him. Let's just
Yeah,
draft him
I
in the
don't
first. Like
understand
what?
that.
It's positional value, my man. Just understand that you can get someone better and then get your guy later.
Yeah, the Washington pick of Jamin Davis, he's a linebacker from Kentucky. I thought they probably could have gotten him a little later. Might have been a bit of a reach.
He was kind of a guy that came out of nowhere too. He kind of seems like one of those guys that might have just put up some good workout numbers and got himself in the first round.
I mean, the Packers, they definitely needed another corner, but like, I don't know. There were still a lot of good receivers on the board, and like, part of me doesn't want to whine for Aaron Rodgers, especially after all the "I'm not coming back" thing. But like, we complain that he doesn't have people complain he doesn't have weapons, but I mean, he has a top 5 wide receiver, a top 10 running back, a tight end who scored 10 plus touchdowns, a good offensive line when healthy. Like he has enough to get by. I mean, they were a really good offense this year. Should they draft some other weapons? Because they only have drafted one offensive player in like 8 years or something. And it was Jordan Love. Sure, they should get him better receivers, but I mean, he has talent. It's not like he's starving for a receiver, But Eric Stokes, I mean, it wasn't a bad value spot, but I don't know if that was the number one thing they should have went after. And then the Browns, while I think they had a good draft, they took Greg Newsome at 26, the corner from Northwestern. And I was just looking at like their roster. I'm like, but you have Greedy Williams, who you took last year, who's now healthy. And then you have, Ward on the other side, who's a top 10 cornerback. I mean,
See,
maybe.
I actually did like that pick because Denzel Ward's good. We know that.
Oh, he's
But Greedy
super
Williams
good.
Greedy Williams is still uncertain. It's not like I think he actually got hurt last year.
He was hurt. Unless Greedy Williams
Yeah.
is going to move to slot and they're going to start this guy. I don't know. But
I actually didn't mind that pick. I didn't mind the Browns draft in general because, again, we even said this when we were doing the draft, is the Browns surprisingly don't really have a lot of holes. And
yeah, the Browns and Bucks were like in the same spot. Like they could just draft for talent and call it a day.
Yeah, honestly, the Browns did great because they got JOK in the second round, so they kind of got two guys. I would have had them considered in the first round at 26. I like the Newsome pick. I think he's pretty good. I think he's going to be pretty solid in that secondary. And then to follow it up with JOK, who you could argue they should have took in the first round, was very impressive.
I mean, in our 4-person mock, we had them taking JOK in the first round, and they got him 52nd overall in the second.
Yeah,
like,
that was
the best steal of the draft, I think.
Another second round player that actually 2 second round guys that I had originally had in the first round, who I liked, who slid. Elijah Moore to the Jets, I thought was a great pick.
It was a good
pick. They went and got Vera Tucker, and they went and got Elijah Moore after the 2 picks after Zach Wilson. They already have invested more in Zach Wilson than they ever did with Sam Darnold. So bravo.
Sad.
I thought Elijah Moore, I was surprised to see him there. I really thought he was going to be the 4th wide receiver taken, but I thought that was a great pick. And I also liked Liam Eichenberg, the offensive tackle for Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. Notre Dame just produces offensive linemen. They just, whatever they're teaching over there is what you should follow. And him to go Miami, who needed an offensive lineman, to get him in the second round, who I had late in the first in our mock, I was very impressed with that. And we already mentioned JOK. And then we crap on them, but the Raiders taking Trevin Murray, the safety from TCU, a guy that was mocked to them a lot in mocks I saw in the first round. It's almost like if you switched Morig and Leatherwood from first and second, you would have thought the Raiders did okay.
They would have been fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the Morig pick. I think that's phenomenal value at 43rd overall.
I agree. Yeah, I thought it helps.
First, best safety in the draft. So
I like Abrams. He's one of their questionable picks. I think he's pretty good. He had the injury. But I think he actually played really well with Murray too.
He's like a Jamal Adams. He's just he's a hitter, not much of a coverage guy. But...
And you know what? You just drafted a safety who's very good at coverage. So I thought it played out really well. Couple other questionable ones I saw in the first round. Obviously, you said the Green Bay. We can't ignore the fact that the Saints took a guy no one's ever heard of.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that was a little questionable. I thought the Zaven Collins pick for the Cardinals was a little questionable too. I get you wanted to go defense.
They did lose Reddick. I mean, they needed.
Yeah, but I thought JOK was better than Collins first place. And considering not a single edge rusher was off the board, I think you could have drafted Jalen Phillips, Kwity Paye, or even Caleb Farley, or Newsome, and made it a better.
I think the knock on JOK was that some teams weren't sure if he would play linebacker or safety for them. So they wanted like a bona fide, like, what is your position? So, I mean, I still would have taken him.
Honestly, for a team that drafted Isaiah Simmons last year, I would assume they would have been more for flexibility. I just, there wasn't any pass rushers off the board. And I'm not saying that's a huge need right now because you still have Chandler Jones. You just signed J.J. Watt. But can you ever have enough pass rushers? And you would have had the first pick on whoever you wanted. Even if you want Kwity Paye, you could probably move him inside, or even take a flyer on Caleb Farley. You solved a lot of your holes in free agency. You needed a corner. Take a guy who, if medically checks out, he's probably a top 10 talent
for sure.
But and those are a couple. The ones that I thought were a little questionable.
Yeah, looking at some of I kind of went over my questionable first rounds, but some of the steals I liked outside the first. I mean, like we said. Owusu Koromua, JOK, as we call him, from Notre Dame. Great pick for the Browns in the second round.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, the Raiders I thought was a really good pick to take the safety there. As much as I hate to admit it, the Giants had a pretty decent draft. To take Azeez Ojulari, the edge rusher from Georgia, and 50th overall, he could have gone first round.
That was I wouldn't have been surprised if they took him in first round and like at their normal pick. So that was another pick I had down that I really liked.
Yeah, that was a good pick. I hate to say Dallas got a steal with Jabril Cox in the fourth round. He could have gone in the second round, the LSU linebacker. But now I'm like looking at it and like maybe they don't like who they have at linebacker because they took Cox and Micah Parsons, and I think they took another linebacker later in the draft.
They
But
did,
like,
yeah.
but they
Jared Jones,
have
11 linebackers. That's his
yeah,
defense, 11 linebackers.
yeah, but they have what's his name? Vander Esch. They have
Jalen
Jalen
Smith.
Smith. So like, I mean, I know Rashawn Lee retired, but you gonna change your defense to play like I don't know, two linemen, six linebackers, and like three safeties. Like what are you
Well,
doing?
hey, listen, it's Jerry Jones. He's being innovated. I did think that was a little questionable. I mean, for them, I like the Parsons pick. I think that's
I
probably who
liked
they
it.
were.
It just was not a
Yeah,
huge need, I don't think.
I
But
liked it well because, as I said, the board didn't work out well for the Eagles, but it did not work out at all well for the Cowboys. And I think at that point they were going to take Parsons regardless. To trade back, get an extra third from the Eagles, I think was a good move on their part. But yeah, to
yeah,
follow it up with two more linebackers, extremely questionable, especially since Smith has already been extended. I mean, Vander Esch, you could move on from, but that's a first round pick. So, you'd hate to be just running around in circles, especially with so many other needs on defense. Like your whole defense is of need. And to just go heavy in one position seemed a little head scratching.
yeah. And then the final two thoughts that I had on my notes about the whole draft was apparently Gainwell, the guy the Eagles took in for from running back. Apparently he grew up an Eagles fan, so he's very excited to be joining the Eagles. So that's a cool little thing. And then I would be remiss as a Hokies fan to not mention that I thought the Bears taking Khalil Herbert, their running back, the sixth round, I think that was very good value. Like he could have gone late fourth, I think, in anywhere in the fifth. And he played really well last year for Virginia Tech. So I think the Bears got a nice rotation guy there. And
look at my man finding sleepers in the sixth round.
of course.
Look at most people turn the TV off on day 3. You said I'm just beginning.
Of course. But yeah, I think that really wraps up my thoughts on the draft. I think it was a pretty strong draft. There's definitely a lot of question marks because there were a ton of players that sat out this year with COVID, but which is, like I said, why I think a lot of teams kind of stockpiled draft picks for next year, but we'll see what happens. I mean, like I said, I'm excited for the Eagles offense. The defense is going to be a bit of a patchwork this year, I think. But they have some good players. Like, you have Slay, you have Cox. I think the secondary is going to be their strength beside the secondary and then the D line, obviously. But
I mean, you hope. I like that. And I mentioned this before. You drafted guys that are talented. They know how to win, but they're leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Your leaders are going to be leaving this team soon. And, those are the cornerstones. I like Jalen Hurts' personality. I like Devontae Smith, Dickerson. My hesitation with Hurts, obviously, I don't know if he's a franchise quarterback, but I like the guy a lot. I really hope he succeeds.
Need to see him play.
Yeah, because you know what? Hurts, Smith, and Dickerson, from what I've seen from them, are guys that could be cornerstones of your locker room. Those could be your Kelce's, your Lane Johnsons, your Brandon Grahams.
Guys too.
And you know what? That helps draft from a winning culture. Nick Saban teaches them well. So I was impressed with that. I will say one little thing in the first round that made me smile is that when we jumped in front of the Giants and then they ultimately moved back, but then they ended up taking what was it, Kadarius Toney. That it was just so beautiful because it was like them just telling you we really wanted Devontae Smith. We wanted him so bad that we're taking a cornerback regardless of where we're drafted. But that one made me feel a little bit happier.
Yeah, and, I saw a video on social media. I guess it was one of the those fans that has like fans of himself, like a popular fan that like people follow.
Yeah.
But this guy he's a Giants fan, and he was like streaming the draft, and people were reacting to it, and he was like, all right, got a couple more picks till Devontae Smith, and he was like, oh wait a minute, Eagles just traded with the Cowboys. What's going on here? He's like, no, they're gonna take Devontae Smith, no. And then it happened. He was like, fuck. So
yeah, it was so nice.
As much as I hate the Cowboys, I'm all for a little teaming up to.
Oh, beautiful! That was
on the Giants.
Listen, I didn't see that trade happening. I'm happy it did. I'm really glad they went. They were aggressive. They went and got the guy they wanted.
Good thing the Eagles tanked that last game.
Oh, I don't care
Doug
what anyone
Peterson's
says. That was a
his
good
final
move. Yeah.
blessing to us.
Poor Doug, froze his last official game with the Eagles and gets fired shortly after he was told he'd keep his job.
And they take a receiver.
But you know what? If DeVonta Smith is the stud player we think he is going to be, thank you, Doug.
I will
Doug
say
doing one more favor for us.
I will say one last thing. I did have a couple of my friends who were like, when we were talking about draft picks, like with DeVonta Smith, they were like, well, I hear his like size could be an issue. Like, do you think he's going to be a bust? Do you think he's going to be good, even though he won the Heisman and stuff? And my answer to that is, I think he has the mentality to be great. And I think that makes such a difference in whether a player becomes, a great player or a bust. There's a lot of things that factor in, but there's coaching. Does he fit the team? Is there players around him that will help him learn and thrive? But at the end of the day, if that player doesn't want to make himself better and be the best at his position, then he won't go anywhere. And I think DeVonta Smith, like, you can see he's so humble. Like, he watched a video of like Eagles fans going crazy that he was picked, and he was like smiling the whole time. He's like, that makes me so excited to play here. And I think he just fits perfectly with what Sirianni's about too, with competitiveness, want to be great. And like I said, I like the comp where they say he's a little bit like a Marvin Harrison. Like, that's a hell of a comparison.
Oh, of course.
I think it'll come down to him. Do I worry that maybe he'll get jammed at the line here and there? Sure, but I've heard his route running is spectacular. I've seen it. Phenomenal pass catch. He's great hands. He's got speed. He's got enough height. I think he'll be fine. I'm not too worried. I'm not worried. He can always bulk up a little bit, but I think he'll be fine.
Listen, he's 6'1". He's skinny. I get that, but you know what? Cheesesteak on cheesesteak on cheesesteak. More calories, my man. It doesn't matter.
He did ask what the best cheesesteak spot was.
Oh, he's gonna be eating 4 a day. We're gonna have him up to 205 when the season starts. It's all right. Now, listen, it comes back to my final thought. Like literally what you just said. You're building guys that are gonna be your cornerstones. His work ethic is gonna make people better. Exactly. It's them, his Dickerson, it's Hurts. Hurts is that personality. We worry about what he is as a quarterback and his throwing ability, but I'm never worried about this guy coming in and not being the hardest worker. So I like that, and that's the approach they're taking. That's what you should have. But DeVonta Smith is easily, I think, just as a prospect, probably the best wide receiver we've had in quite a long time. He gives you that yak possibility. I haven't seen a guy on the Eagles get yak, and I couldn't tell you in how long. So
yeah. I like looking at it now. I like, I would imagine you have DeVonta Smith as your one. If Fulgham is your two, and then your Z or your like slot guy who's still on the field like 90% of the time would be I just blanked on his name.
Rager,
yeah.
Yeah, listen, if you move on from Hurts, you're not going to be in the 12 personnel as much with the 2 tight ends, so you can afford to put a guy in the slide. And this pick is great for Rager. We're not picking DeVonta Smith to make up for the fact that Rager, isn't Justin Jefferson. It's to help him. I don't think Rager's a bad player. I think he's bad compared to Justin Jefferson.
I think that the problem with Rager is that he is his best when he doesn't need to be the best player on the field.
Yeah.
So I think if teams have to worry about DeVonta Smith and like Miles Sanders, like I think Rager is going to get better opportunities to shine, and like him being able to be thrown anywhere on the field as opposed to having to like stay at the 1 slot or stay at the 2 slot will be so much better. Like they can put him outside the tight end, they can put him on the outside of the field, they can put him in the backfield. Like they can move him around everywhere now. So I think it's a great pick for the Eagles and for Rager. So
no, I agree. It's a pick that doesn't, he doesn't just help and make your team better. Like his position isn't better, the team's better.
Yeah, I've never been so. I mean, as a Eagles fan since I was like old enough to walk or crawl, probably. I've always looked forward to training camp and seeing some of the new players, but I'm hyped to see DeVonta Smith.
He's one of my favorite rookies in a while.
He will be wearing number 6 with the new number rules, so that's kind of cool.
Love it.
So yeah, I'm hyped to see him get to work and see what they do with him. So,
well, listen, you know what? My closing thought it's been a while since I've seen Howie's made a pick where I just instantly am not like questionable or angry over.
Yeah.
I have to lie to myself and convince myself in the next coming months before training camp to that this was a good pick. I immediately thought Devontae Smith was a good pick. I was celebrating once they made the trade.
Right.
I was extremely happy. And I'll give you this last little fact before we go off. UCF Knights, baby. 5 drafted players in this draft, more than the powerhouses of Miami, Florida State, and Auburn. Go Knights, baby. It's a new day.
No one cares.
Oh, I care.
I guess that's good. I mean, they've definitely come a long way, but
half the whole secondary, I think, got drafted.
Probably because I turned down their offer to go to that school, and they're like, oh, we need to build a better football program. That's why he didn't come.
Of course, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, what offer did they give you? I don't recall that one.
All right, I like I said, like the picks. Like
overall, we're positive.
We're positive.
I understand the criticisms with Dickerson.
Well, they're justified.
But hey, I hear you. But I think we can all agree the first round pick was good. And you know what? You got the guy you probably would have going to take at 6 anyway, and you got a first round pick out of that. So I'll give Howie credit on that. Well done. I hope it works out, and we'll see. But I'm happy. I'm excited. Yeah. Someone will build around. Get that jersey off Alibaba, that Devontae Smith number 6. Let's go, baby.
Buy the real one.
I might have to for him.
For him, yeah. Because it'll be good luck.
For sure. All righty. Well, I'll talk to you. Till next time.
Peace out, everyone, and enjoy your week.